Story 1. John Harvey Kellogg would probably be very unhappy with how sweet and flavorful many Kellogg cereals are now. He would absolutely despair at people having inappropriate fantasies about Tony the Tiger. That is the exact opposite of what he wanted. Story 2. Wozniak is fairly disappointed with how Apple has changed over the years, not just in recent years. Their move away from open access was one of the driving factors behind his decision to walk away and sell his shares in the mid-1980s. Story 3. Herb Kelleher. He died in 2019. He would be very upset with how Southwest Airlines has changed since his death. He treated his employees as best as he could, knowing that would lead to a positive work environment and bring in much money for the company. He also valued customer feedback. The bags fly free policy and no change fees policy were both designed to increase customer loyalty. He wanted to treat customers equally, regardless of fare paid. This was one of the reasons why Southwest had an open seat policy from its inception. In mid-2024, a private equity firm, Elliott Investment Management, acquired a stake in the airline, and like what private equity usually does, it began to harm the airline. It forced the airline to remove the popular bags fly free and no change fees policies. It forced the airline to eliminate the open seat policy. It forced the airline to furlough employees. Elliott has basically damaged Southwest Airlines for no good reason. Herb would be very disappointed by that. Story 4. Coco Chanel, who was associated with the Nazi regime. After World War II, the workers in her purse factories had to be treated like human beings. Feminist icon is an exaggeration. She was just another industrialist of the robber baron type. Story 5. Believe it or not, Sam Walton was a visionary retailer and salesman. He never took bank loans to expand. Instead, each store was individually financed, and managers were given the opportunity to buy into the store. Many became millionaires when Walmart went public. He was obsessed with customer service and providing value to customers and the communities they served. Even when he became the richest man in the world, his values never wavered. Walmart is now huge and his children and grandchildren are all billionaires, but I truly think he would be sickened by many of the current business practices and the lack of a moral guiding star for the company. Story 6. I worked at Walmart when Sam Walton was still alive. He focused on customer service. We had the 10-foot rule. If a customer was within 10 feet of you, you had to ask if they needed help. Yes, he was no saint, but the death of customer service in that store would not make him happy. Story 7. Companies like General Motors, Boeing, and Intel were founded by engineers who took great pride in their work. Now they are run by cookie-cutter Master of Business Administration graduates who have no understanding of the engineering side that generates revenue, with inevitable results. Story 8. Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield sold Ben and Jerry's ice cream to Unilever and are actively trying to buy it back due to concerns about the brand's social mission and political stances. Story 9. Klaus Martens would probably find the quality of the modern Dr. Martens boots horrifyingly bad. Story 10. Do the men who signed the Declaration of Independence count? Story 11. Dave Thomas was very serious about the quality of the food at Wendy's being superior to other fast food restaurants. I have noticed the decline gradually over the years since his death. I do not think he would like the gimmicky items either, such as the tacos burger. Story 12. Probably something offensive like Hugo Boss seeing them celebrating Pride or something. Story 13. Henry Ford would be horrified that his company no longer has official policies of hating Jewish people. Story 14. Che Guevara. I am sure he would not like his face being printed on capitalist t-shirts. Story 15. Paul Orfalia, the founder of Kinko's, was banned from the stores years ago because he was not happy with how Federal Express was running them. The situation has not improved. Story 16. The National Rifle Association, presumably founded as a gun safety and marksmanship organization, morphed into a radical pro-gun lobby. Story 17. Although he did not start it, I feel like Nikola Tesla would be ashamed and enraged to have his name associated with Elon Musk's company. Story 18. The founder of Greenpeace left because the organization became focused on gaining extremist attention. Story 19. Henry Ford would be upset that certain people are allowed to work at his company. Story 20. Colonel Harlan Sanders already hated what Kentucky Fried Chicken had become by the time he was in his final years. He would absolutely despise what it has become now. Story 21. The founders of the Republican Party in the United States were anti-slavery advocates and supporters of Abraham Lincoln. They were almost the complete opposite of the party today. The people currently leading the party in some regions historically supported violence against those with similar views. Story 22. Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Remember when their slogan was, "Don't be evil"? Who in the world could have led that company so far astray? Edit. I am not explaining any of the jokes included in this. Thank you for your comments. Story 23. All of the founding fathers of the United States of America, because the United States of America is clearly now a company. Story 24. The two men who founded Tesla and sold it to a Nazi. Story 25. Bob Wegman of Wegmans Grocery Stores was the second generation of grocers who transformed the company into a regional powerhouse. His picture hangs in the front of every store with a slogan about never thinking of yourself and always doing for others. Bob was a philanthropist who, among other things, single-handedly financed an endowment for his high school alma mater and various other Catholic schools to continue for at least a generation past his death. His heirs live in lakeside castles and multiple mansions, counting their billions while ignoring people in the hometown that made them successful, many of whom live in hunger, poverty, homelessness, and food deserts. Bob's company once served those communities. Story 26. I think Steve Jobs would have been very upset with Tim Cook's leadership. I am not a fan of Steve Jobs, but he was truly innovative and focused on creating products that people genuinely wanted. Story 27. Boeing, if he were alive, would have removed the McDonnell Douglas members who prioritized finance over engineering products. Story 28. Jesus Christ. Despite what you think, it is definitely a business. Story 29. Lloyd's of London. I actually do not know anything about Lloyd's of London except that it started over 300 years ago, so the founders would be terrified by things like phones, computers, and electric lights, and would assume that the entire organization was run by demons. Story 30. I'm shocked not to see Walter Elias Disney on this list. He wanted a park where children could go and play, not where you could spend $2,000 a day. It is all about big profits now. Story 31. Carrie Neiman and Herbert Marcus would not be pleased with the significant decline in customer service over the last 10 years. Story 32. Steve Jobs. Apple used to innovate. Now it just releases incremental upgrades. Story 33. Do you think they would still be horrified when you show them how much their company is currently worth? Story 34. Sam Walton was an America-made type of person. He would fight to get things cheaper, but cheaper from America. It did not become a Chinese import store until after his death. He also refused to sell cigarettes by the pack, only by the carton. A pack contains 20 cigarettes, and a carton contains 20 packs. Therefore, only people who were already smokers would purchase cigarettes from him. No one who is just starting smokes pays for a full carton. Only once you are addicted do you buy that much at once. Story 35. Only loosely related, but George Washington would not be happy with how deeply America has been divided because of the two-party system. Story 36. Henry Ford would be very upset with what happened to his car manufacturing machine. Story 37. Sam Walton was a champion of American manufacturing and fair pay. His children have been criticized by some. Story 38. I am living this nightmare from inside the company I helped to establish. Transitioning from a founder-led business to a private equity business is brutal for the founders. Story 39. All the Japanese companies like Nakamichi, whose names have been sold to Chinese trademark owners who produce low-quality plastic products. Toshiba, Akai, and Sanyo founders as well. Story 40. I do not know if Henry Ford would be satisfied with the current Ford lineup and their move to becoming a truck and sport utility vehicle company, or the state of the current car industry in general. The technological advances would amaze him, though. I wonder if he would still want to pay wages to his workers so they can afford his car offerings. Story 41. Steve Jobs and the bending of the knee being shown to Donald Trump. Story 42. Reddit's Aaron Swartz. Not sure if it has been said already, it probably has. So it needs to be said again. Story 43. Probably Steve Jobs with Apple's shift to services, Walt Disney seeing the corporate focus on franchises, or Hewlett-Packard's founders watching the move away from engineering-first values. They would be shocked at how far things have drifted from their original visions. Story 44. George Jenkins, the founder of Publix, had a strong focus on customer service, quality products, and taking care of his employees. He would be deeply disappointed to see how Publix is now. After he died, many employee benefits were cut, and shortcuts were taken in various departments to streamline the process. While there is still a focus on customer service, it is nowhere near what it used to be. Much of Publix now feels like a generic grocery store in late-stage capitalism. Story 45. Lloyd and Mary Anderson started Recreational Equipment Incorporated as a company to get out and explore the natural surroundings. It was intended to be a cooperative. I think they would be disappointed in the corporation and the lack of a cooperative that it has become, said a former Recreational Equipment Incorporated employee. Story 46. Gordon Moore would not be impressed with Intel. Their processors are mediocre, they no longer have the most advanced process technology, and the executives have pushed the company into such decline that it has been partially nationalized. Meanwhile, their former second-source supplier is now worth more than 2.5 times what Intel is worth, has product lines that outperform Intel at all levels, and is not restricted by outdated process technology. Story 47. Walt Disney wanted the park to be affordable for everyone. Story 48. I would like to think Aaron Swartz would not be happy about the hateful and widespread anti-Semitism that has spread like a virus across almost this entire website. Story 49. I can imagine the founder or founders of Blizzard Entertainment. Story 50. Thomas Edison would probably be horrified to learn that General Electric has basically exited the electrical business. Story 51. MicroStrategy used to be a company renowned for its tools for analytics and machine learning. Story 52. Hewlett-Packard would be astonished at the way Hewlett-Packard United Kingdom has chosen not to award discretionary increases to United Kingdom pensioners, driving them into poverty. Story 53. Rudolf Diesel invented the diesel engine to run on vegetable oil. We have chosen to extract diesel from the ground instead of growing it. Story 54. Sam Walton had no intention of making Walmart the employee and vendor abusing behemoth it is today. Story 55. Steve Jobs would be horrified at the poor decisions behind many of the changes to the iPhone operating system. They are very far from the intuitive user experience that used to guide all decisions. Story 56. Not a company, but I am going to go with the founders of the United States of America. Story 57. Trip Hawkins founded Electronic Arts in 1982 with the radical idea that game developers should be treated like artists. Hawkins saw the burgeoning game industry as an art form and wanted to elevate the status of game designers, promoting them as software artists. He even put their names and faces on the early game boxes like album covers. Electronic Arts' whole identity back then was about creativity and pushing the medium forward. Fast forward to today, and the company is infamous for microtransactions, rushed releases, and milking franchises. It is almost the complete opposite of what Hawkins envisioned. Story 58. There was a recent report that Apple will be using Google Gemini to enhance Siri and Apple Intelligence. My first thought was, Steve Jobs is rolling in his grave. Story 59. Sam Walton built a homegrown business meant to enrich an area and support employees. Instead, it has turned into a cold machine squeezing every last dollar out of the local economy, employees, and small business owners. Story 60. Paul Newman would be livid at what has become of his philanthropic brand Newman's Own. It looks like Dr. Bronner's is headed the same way under their new leadership. Greedy heirs who are not satisfied with being wealthy want to be extremely rich and end up destroying the brands they were entrusted with. Story 61. Pinkerton. The infamous Pinkerton Detective Agency was known for its robust, unbribable private investigator firm. It operated with strict rules and ethical standards during a time when police had little accountability and often acted as legalized thugs, falsely imprisoning people and being paid off by the wealthy. Toward the end of his life, the firm began to change. His sons and other company leaders found his honorable professional standards inconvenient. Today, the agency is known for union busting and underhanded schemes. Story 62. America's Founding Fathers. This corporation has gone off the rails under Mango Mussolini and the Heritage Brothers, which is also your stepfather's band name when they play at the La Quinta Inn Lounge by the freeway. Story 63. Sam Walton. I have not looked up a biography of the man, but I have heard he was much more concerned with protecting his employees than with profits. Once he passed away, Walmart became the soulless monolith of consumerism we know today. Story 64. Ford was very racist and anti-Semitic. He distributed a book in every car he sold called The International Jew, which he published through his own publishing house. He would be very upset that Ford is no longer racist or anti-Semitic. Story 65. Steve Jobs would probably eliminate all extra Apple products, streamline them, and then sell only a select few. Story 66. Two Canadians, Frederick Banting and Charles Best, discovered insulin treatment. They believed it was too important to profit from people's lives and never patented their treatments or drugs. Story 67. The McDonald brothers would be horrified by the 50-minute delay getting through the drive-thru of my local McDonald's during rush hour. Story 68. They are not in business anymore because the grandson and heir to Max Factor makeup is in jail. They had the best black eyeliner. It went on smooth and dark, and it did not smear or run. It is likely that J.D. Vance was upset too. Story 69. Dr. Upjohn started a thriving pharmaceutical company with strong values, only to be acquired by Pfizer. Pfizer dismantled the drug research divisions of Upjohn, Searle, Parke-Davis, American Home Products, and many others, significantly reducing pharmaceutical research in the United States. Story 70. Henry Ford would be mortified to learn that Jewish people can buy his automobiles if they want to. Story 71. Dave Thomas founded Wendy's. He was a kind man who cared deeply. Now the restaurant he started is considered one of the worst places to go. It is unfortunate. Story 72. Walt Disney. The man was obsessed with making quality films. Whatever you did, no matter how good it was, he would simply say, "That will work," because he did not believe in perfection. He believed that no matter how well something was crafted, it could always be better. He was also a disliker of sequels. He learned the hard way when he made 2 follow-up shorts to The Three Little Pigs in 1933, and they did not achieve nearly the same level of success. He famously said, "You cannot top pigs with pigs." He refused to make a sequel to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937. Then there is Disneyland. When it opened in 1955, an adult ticket cost only $1, which is $12 with inflation. Nowadays, it costs $150. Story 73. Jack Dorsey regretted selling Twitter so much that he remade it as Blue Sky. Story 74. Walt Disney would probably not be happy with all the women and minorities working at Disney. He would be even less happy that a significant number of Disney employees are union members. Story 75. Henry Ford would be aghast at all the gay people, Jewish people, and non-white people working for his company. That offensive statement is inappropriate. Story 76. The United States founders, certainly. As for the company aspect, the United States seems to operate for corporate benefit rather than for the people. Story 77. Probably Walt Disney. Disney is by no means a progressive company, but the man was known to hold extremist views. He would likely be upset about the direction the company has taken. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.